Thank you all for joining today. As was noted, I'm the HHS Small Business Program Lead here at the National Institutes of Health. And I'm going to provide a quick overview of the overall NIH program, but we're so fortunate today to have several individuals from some of the specific institutes and centers. And if you take nothing else from my introduction today, one, we really do welcome you to contact us in advance of your application, and that each institute and center is a little bit different, and they utilize the program a little bit differently based on their needs and their mission space, and so it's really important to reach out and talk with us. That said, there's some overall information about the program I can provide, and so I'm going to launch into that today. So we really utilize the small business program within NIH to help us meet our mission, and that's to turn discovery into health. We use the programs to move those great innovations and get them into the hands of the patients, clinicians, caregivers, and researchers that need them. You're going to be seeing a lot about the SBIR and STTR programs, but at NIH, the real fundamental difference between the SBIR and STTR programs is that the SBIR allows for partnering and the STTR requires partnering with a US research institution. In both cases, the money always goes to the small business. The small business is always the awardee, but it's really important to know that there are some policy differences between the SBIR and STTR, and I encourage, again, look over the two programs and then reach out to program staff if you have questions. Now, taken together, these provide over $1.2 billion of dedicated funding for small businesses. Now, this is the largest source of early stage capital for life sciences in the United States, or one of the largest sources of early stage capital. We consider it free money. It's not a loan. It's non-dilutive. There's intellectual property and data protection. And many of our awardees really leverage this funding to attract investors and partners. We recognize that the SBIR STTR program is often in this early space. And what that means is you may not be able to get to market with the SBIR STTR program, but you can get to an inflection point that will allow you to attract those investors and partners to take you the rest of the way. Now, we're going to be talking a lot about the phased programs, and this is an extremely complicated slide, and I do recognize that, but I'm going to kind of walk through it with you today. So the SBIR STTR is phased. There's phase 1 and a phase 2. These are not related to clinical trials phases. It's an unfortunate similarity in the nomenclature. The phase 1 is the feasibility study, and phase 2 is further research and development. Now, one of the myths that I do hear a lot is, what's the definition of feasibility? And a lot of people have some misconceptions about what is feasibility. And I would just state to you that feasibility at NIH is defined as the feasibility necessary for the phase 2. So it's a very broad definition. I've seen things come in that are feasibility stage for the clinical trial, or feasibility stage and they're doing, a prototype and everything in between. So again, don't get caught up on the word feasibility. We also do offer something called a fast track. So NIH does use a peer review process to review its applications. So the standard way of coming in is you come in for a phase 1, and then you come in for a phase 2. So you have a review between the phase 1 and phase 2. So you have a phase 2 application. The fast track combines the phase 1 and phase 2 into one application. And so you have peer review at the beginning, and then you have administrative review between the phase 1 and phase 2. We also have something called a direct to phase 2. That's for companies that have really done that feasibility. They've done a large amount of the research in that feasibility space, and they want to move directly into the phase 2. Now that's for SBIR only. Regardless of how you come in and how you get to a phase 2, we really recognize that for some of our applications, some of our projects, the phase 2 may not be enough to move you to the commercial market or an inflection point. And that's why we have things called the phase 2B and the CRP. Now, remember when I was talking about how the importance of contacting us and that each institute and center uses it a little bit differently? Well, not all institutes and centers participate in this phase 2B or the additional phase 2 or that commercialization readiness pilot, the CRP. Not everybody does that, or they do it in different ways. And so it's really important to reach out and talk with us in advance of applying. For both the CRP and the additional phase 2, you need to have had a phase 2 in order to qualify. Now, for another big misconception that I hear is around the budget. What you see in the slide today is the budget guidelines provided by the SBA. The SBA will adjust these for inflation on a yearly basis, so you will see these move a little bit. But these are the general budget guidelines for the SBA. That said, we do have a waiver from the Small Business Administration to exceed these budgets for some topics. And an institute or center can decide how much they're willing to exceed the budgets, how large their budget they're willing to go for those topics. So it's really important to reach out. It may not be, you may look at these numbers and think that's not going to work for my technology or my research. But again, there may be some flexibility there. And we do recognize for things like, for example, clinical trials, you might need additional funds to really, again, get to that inflection point. We have a ton of information on our website, and I am not going to go through it all today, but it is a wealth of information, including things like sample applications, different resources that are available, our funding opportunities you see highlighted in yellow here, as well as an infographic, if you're new to SBIR, to walk through the entire SBIR process, the registrations that are required, etc. The majority of our funding does go to investigator-initiated applications. Unlike the DoD or other agencies, we tend not to be the main purchasers of the technology. Again, we're getting you to the point where you're going to get to market, where you're going to get it into the hands of those patients, clinicians, caregivers, and researchers. So the majority of our funding does go to that investigator-initiated applications, not through specific program announcements. We do have standard receipt dates. They're 3 times a year. The next one coming up is April 5th, and then after that, it will be September the 7th, because September 5th falls on a weekend, and then it's a 3-day weekend, so it's the next business day. Some institutes and centers also participate in an applicant assistance program. That's for those individuals who have never received an NIH grant before. This is an assistance program to help you through the application process. So again, I encourage you to take a look at that program. If you're new to the NIH SBIR and STTR programs, you can potentially take advantage of that, that support and resource. Speaking of support and resources, I am part of SEED, the Small Business Education and Entrepreneurial Development office here at the Office of Extramural Research. And I point this out because there's real recognition at NIH that many of our small businesses and many of our innovations are coming from individuals who this may be their first time breaking into the small business landscape. This may be their first small business, their first time being an entrepreneur. And we really saw the need to develop and support that innovator community with information. So in addition to myself, we also have Asim Sebedi, who works in the academic innovation space, and Chris Saciella, who leads our innovator support team. But really, we see ourselves as where this is part of the SEED fund, and we're here to help seed those great innovations, to seed the marketplace with those great innovations. We have a number of ways that we can support our awardees, again, recognizing that oftentimes some of our companies do need that additional help as they're moving towards the marketplace. We have the Technical and Business Assistance Program, or the TABA. There's the TABA needs assessment. If you've received a phase 1, you may be eligible for the TABA needs assessment program. And that needs assessment program really helps assess the needs of the company and see what your next steps are within the business landscape. That can help inform you when you're looking at what you want to request in your phase 2, because you can request TABA funding, again, technical and business assistance, as part of your phase 2. And so the TABA needs assessment can often help you determine what should your next step be. In addition to TABA and separate from TABA, we have education programs, ICorps, C3I, that help really, again, help our new entrepreneurs really understand the business and the market side of things. We have the funding and support, the CRP that I mentioned, that commercialization readiness pilot that can do both additional technical assistance as well as, in some cases, some additional later stage research. And we have regulatory and business development consultants, as well as providing opportunities for companies to go to different company showcases and partnering investment opportunities, usually throughout the country, although recently they have been virtual, but certainly in a variety of different areas. I talked about the Innovator Support for our awardees. We have a wealth of finance, strategy, intellectual property, and regulatory experts that can provide that support and provide that guidance to our companies. And so these entrepreneur in residence, as well as other experts, really provide some of that basic information to our companies who are just getting started, and help with pitch coaching as we send companies to different events. All right, back to the most important piece of advice. Most important piece of advice is talking to a program officer at least a month before the deadline. It's really important to reach out. If you're not sure who to reach out to, you can look at a list of the different program managers, and you can see here where I've marked how to get to those individuals. You can also look at the NIH report tool to see where the kinds of the different, where your technology has been historically assigned. And then if you're really not sure who to contact, you can reach out to me. My email is here, or our office email is here. I end up answering a lot of those, so please feel free to reach out. And with that, I'm going to encourage you to get connected. You can either, again, I'd encourage you to reach out to us via email or through the web. We're happy to answer your questions. We're happy to help guide you and make sure that you get to the right program person within NIH to get your questions answered. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Judy. Excellent.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. What a wealth of information you are, and a great program that you run. And we're going to keep things moving here. We can make up a little bit of time if necessary during Q&A. I want to mention to our participants on the line, some of you joined since we started. I'm with BioHealth Innovation. We're happy to bring you this workshop with support from Montgomery County, Maryland Economic Development Commission. So we're going to now walk through the individual institutes, and we're going to start with another Stephanie Davis with NHLBI. And Stephanie, we'll let you go ahead. Thank you for being here and joining us today.
Thank you so much, Judy. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the big screen version of my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for that introduction. I am the other Stephanie. I am Stephanie Davis. I am the Small Business Program Coordinator at the National Heart, Lung, Blood Institute, and I'm really happy to be able to share some of the great resources and funding opportunities we have for innovators in heart, lung, blood, and sleep disorders. So our institute focuses on funding innovative and commercially promising products to prevent and treat heart, lung, blood, and sleep-related diseases. I should note that in terms of the heart and lung and blood disorders that we do treat, we do focus on non-oncologic diseases. So if you are looking at lung or blood cancers, you should direct your your focus area to the NCI. But in last year's fiscal year, we gave approximately $117 million in non-dilutive funding to fund approximately 312 active small business projects. So in this pie chart, you can see the breakdown of the types of technologies that our program funds. Approximately 1/3 of our portfolio consists of therapeutics, which these consist of biologics, gene therapy, small molecules. About 30% of our portfolio consists of supportive devices, which both include therapeutic devices and surgical devices. And then the remaining 1/3 of our portfolio is split among research tools, in vitro diagnostics, monitoring devices or sensors, health IT, and imaging devices. So this breakdown does vary from year to year, and we don't keep it held constantly. It does fluctuate based on what applications we receive. So most of our applications that we receive for the small business program come in through the Omnibus Funding Opportunity announcements. So the NHLBI does fund clinical trials for both phase 1 and phase 2 SBIR and STTR applications. So basically, we don't have a lot of targeted funding opportunity announcements, but as long as your proposal relates to our mission space, then you should be able to apply through one of these opportunities. In terms of our budget specifics, so basically, the NIH has a hard cap for phase 1 SBIR or STTR proposals of about $256,000. And for phase 2, that hard cap is $1.71 million over about a 2-year period. So the NHLBI does not have a hard cap above those initial hard caps if you have an SBA approved topic for budget waivers. So just keep in mind that we do have kind of a soft or suggested cap of $300,000 for a phase 1 and $2 million for a phase 2 proposal. If you need more than that, you are absolutely welcome to request that, but we do keep these in place because sometimes proposals don't get funded if they are too expensive. Other things to keep in mind, so you do want to make sure that you adhere to the subcontracting requirements for SBIR and STTR proposals. You are allowed to request a 7% fee, which is basically the company profit. And this is highly recommended that you request it at the time of application. One more thing I wanted to mention is that for especially smaller companies that don't have a lot of resources or space to be able to perform the activities mentioned in their proposals, they do require outsourcing of these activities to CROs or other organizations. So I should mention that at the NHLBI, we will count CRO type activities as a part of your small business costs, meaning they're not going to count towards your subcontracting limit, provided that the services are commercially available, that the small business does all data analyses, and it is on a fee per basis. So you're only paying for the services being performed. So Stephanie kind of went over all of the experts that are available to help portfolio companies in the seed office. So I should mention that all of our funded companies are able to access the fantastic resources in the seed office. And we also have some advisory experts that work for our innovation office as well. So if Dr. Steve Flame looks familiar, he not only serves a role as an investor in residence for seed, but he also serves that role for the NHLBI and has done so for the past 10 years. Additionally, we also have entrepreneurs in residence who specialize in areas that are useful to our companies. Our newest EIR, Dr. Renee Arnold, is our health economics specialist. We also have Kwame Ulmer. He is our regulatory specialist, and he is our second newest EIR. Additionally, we have Luis Gutierrez, who's our EIR and business development expert, and Gautam Prakash, who is our IP advisor. He's actually been on detail from the US Patent and Trademark Office for several years, and he also has some public health expertise as well. So these advisors are here to pitch coach for our companies, to provide consultations based on commercialization or business development issues, And they are here to not only provide this expertise to our funded portfolio companies, but also if you're an applicant, you have a particular question that focuses on interacting with the FDA, for example, I would direct you to Kwame so he could offer his expertise. So this slide shows kind of an overview of the different programs and resources that are supported by the NHLBI Innovation Office. Of course, Stephanie already mentioned a lot of these that are offered through SEED and the NIH as a whole. Some of the programs I did want to point out that are unique to NHLBI is I wanted to point out that we do have resources for small businesses in the form of educational webinars, and we also have a YouTube series called NHLBI Small Business Hangouts, which I do have a link in my slide deck that I will showcase later. But these are educational videos that are available on demand for a lot of different issues that might be facing applicants and awardees. We also offer what is known as our product development mentoring support system through our NHLBI Mentor Network. So our Mentor Network include business development experts in different areas that have the expertise necessary to mentor our awardees. So anybody who is an NHLBI Small Business Awardee can submit a request for mentoring in terms of their product development, and Luis Gutierrez will actually pick out mentors from that mentor network that have the areas of expertise needed by the company, and then he'll help set up some mentoring sessions so that way you could be mentored by these network of mentors, and then they can reevaluate your process as the mentoring goes on. So we tend to support companies all the way from those that are just starting out, those that are academic, all the way up to those that are receiving Phase 2B awards and CRP awards that are a little bit further along in their commercialization journey. So Stephanie did mention the Applicant Assistance Program. And so I just wanted to point out that this is a free 10-week coaching program that is designed to help new and previously unsuccessful Phase 1 applicants submit a Phase 1 SBIR or STTR grant application. NHLBI is one of the institutes that participates, along with 7 other institutes listed here. So this isn't a grant writing service, and this isn't going to have someone write your research plan for you, but you will have a coach who can walk you through the process and set you up with the necessary experts at NHLBI to help you successfully submit your application. This program is, it is designed to help previously unsuccessful applicants, but we are particularly interested in women-owned and business-owned by historically underrepresented minority individuals. So the next due date for the AAP is going to be May 20th, and that is going to be for the September 5th omnibus deadline. So you have a innovation that is focused on heart, lung, blood, or sleep disorders, and you are interested in this program, I highly recommend you check it out. One thing I also wanted to mention, this was on the previous slide, but we have a new program that was launched in 2019 called the Catalyze Program. So the Catalyze Program is designed to provide a comprehensive suite and support to both academic investigators and small businesses alike to facilitate the translation of innovations focused on heart, lung, blood, and sleep discoveries. So this is kind of a pilot program in that we had kind of a soft launch last fall. Currently, right now, we have a coordinating center in place to help our current awardees and applicants, but the program is designed to provide different funding opportunities and expertise through our mentor network to maybe companies that are a little bit early on in the commercialization stage, or applicants that don't have a company, but they are an academic investigator that has a technology that can be commercialized. So, if you're not quite ready for an SBIR grant, I would highly recommend looking into some of our Catalyze funding opportunity announcements. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email nhlbi_catalyze@mail.nih.gov to speak with my colleague, Dr. Mike Peck. So this slide shows some of the current activities that are supported by Catalyze. So right now we have several RFAs that focus specifically on product definition for drugs, biologics, and devices and diagnostics. I should mention right now that the preclinical RFAs are not yet published. We are planning on having them published later this year. And you know, if you are interested in the Catalyze program, I did want to mention that these activities are mostly focused on product definition and preclinical development. So if you are planning on performing clinical work in your proposal, unfortunately, Catalyze does not support that, nor do they support engagement with the FDA. But if you are very early stage and you're looking to support some of these product definition and preclinical activities, the Catalyze is a great program to help support the development of your technology. So here are the currently available RFAs for our Catalyze program. As I mentioned, these are mostly focused on product definition, as the preclinical RFAs are going to hopefully be out later this year. So we have 2 different RFAs focused on the development and testing of devices or diagnostics. We have 2 different funding opportunities focused on small molecules, biologics, and other therapeutics. And we have one focused on enabling technologies. And these RFAs are designed for, you know, we have one of them for each of the devices and the therapeutics that focuses on, you know, earlier stage companies. And then we have another one that that's designed for companies or academic investigators that are a little bit further along in their product definition. But if you are a US-based academic, you are permitted to apply for these. So it's not like the SBIRs where you need to have a company in place. But if you are a company, you can also apply for these Catalyze funding opportunities. And the next deadline for all of these is going to be July 9th. As I mentioned earlier, we have a Small Biz Hangout YouTube playlist. And you know, these are some of the topics that are covered by our Hangouts. They are very useful, and you know, I highly recommend watching them if you have questions about a lot of these issues related to commercializing your product. And here are some resources that I highly suggest looking into. So we have sample applications courtesy of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease and the National Institute on Aging. Definitely read over the SF424 application instructions. Stephanie also mentioned NIH Reporter. One thing I wanted to mention that kind of falls under the Reporter umbrella is NIH Matchmaker, which it's a part of Reporter, but if you are looking for similar funded projects or program officials that have the expertise necessary to advise you on your proposal, all you have to do is copy and paste your specific aims page or your executive summary into the text box, and it will match you to those projects or to those POs. So if you'd like to connect with us, here is our NHLBI Small Business Inquiry Form. Likewise, a good way to keep update is to follow us on Twitter or sign up for our newsletter. And likewise, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to email our inbox at nhlbi_SBIR@mail.nih.gov. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. What a wealth of information everybody is. We are going to keep going here. And for those of you who have joined us on this webinar, we're going to save the speakers have kindly agreed to wait to the end of all the NIH, the overview and institute presentations, and then they'll take your questions as you have them during this. So feel free to send them to us using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom. So next we get to hear about opportunities at the National Institute of Aging, and Saroj Rajmi, I think, is about to come on and share his slides. And I will also mention while he's getting on here that that many of the speakers have agreed to make their slides available and potentially these recordings after the event. So if you're on our list, we'll follow up with you with that information. They've obviously have spent a lot of time preparing and are giving a lot of information to you. Saroj?
Thank you, Judy. Welcome, everyone. My name is Saroj Rajmi, and I'm a program officer at the Office of Small Business Research. Today, I'll touch upon some of the aspects of SBIR funding at the NIH. The Office of Small Business Research at NIA does more than administer all SBIR, STTR awards. We are here to provide guidance. We help you prepare for your applications and resubmissions and discuss funding opportunities. For outreach, we also attend conferences and workshops such as this one and visit regional organizations to raise awareness of the program. In terms of funding, we're constantly thinking about emerging technologies, and we develop targeted funding opportunities and omnibus interest topics to seed these technologies. In terms of networking, we facilitate connection between awardees and potential strategic partners. These could be folks within the NIH or outside. We regularly talk with investors who are interested in NIA-funded technologies. We've partnered also with ADDF, which now provides bridge funding to promising NIA-funded companies. I'll speak more about that later. And recently, we organized an investor-focused meeting wherein over 100 investors participated. In terms of entrepreneurship, we provide entrepreneurship training as well as webinars on key commercialization-related topics. And we have a dedicated EIR, entrepreneur in residence, Dr. Don Rose, who works part-time as an advisor at a VC firm. So he's able to provide really relevant guidance and pitch coaching for NIA-funded companies. So if you look at the NIA SBIR STTR budget obligation, it has tremendously expanded over the years. We were at 27.5 million in 2013, and the estimate for 2021 is 132.3 million. So, the idea is that NIA is really interested if you have a very innovative proposal. So Stephanie went over this, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but, Congress has divided the funding mechanism into distinct phases. But it's very important to note that this is very different from phases of clinical research. Most of the SBIR, STTR funding is for preclinical research. So phase 1 award is for discovery and feasibility projects. It is up to a year. And for NIA, the awards are up to $300,000 for general applications. And if your technology or product is specific for Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, this can go up to $500,000. And the idea is that you establish technical merit, feasibility, and potential for commercialization within that year of your phase 1. Phase 2, meanwhile, is for 2 years and is for full research and development after successful completion of feasibility studies in phase 1. The awards are up to 2 million and 2.5 million for ADRD, and this requires a commercialization plan. Now there are mechanisms that are available to you if you combine phase 1 and phase 2 without a gap. The idea is that you submit specific aims for both phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time, and you're evaluated at the end of phase 1 on whether you meet those milestones that you set out earlier. The big advantage of this is there's no gap in funding and you don't have to write a separate application. And that's essentially fast track application for you. There's also a direct to phase 2 for SBIR awards. The idea is that you already have done feasibility studies using other funds, so you can come in and apply for these. You can also apply for commercialization readiness pilot, which is funding for late stage, excuse me, R&D topics and technical assistance for commercialization. So finally, you can apply for phase 2B, which is a competing renewal, and it's for 3 years. So if you look at the different phases within the NIA and NIH, you can look at around $8 million of funding for around 8 years, and this is a rather significant amount of money. And please note that the way the SBIR is structured, it's awarded on a per project basis, so you could have multiple projects as well. There are 4 divisions within the NIA through which it provides SBIR STTR support. First is the Division of Aging Biology, which provides a basis in basic biology for preventive and interventional strategies to increase resilience and extend healthy aging. The other 3 divisions are Division of Behavioral and Social Research, Division of Geriatrics and Clinical Gerontology, and the Division of Neuroscience. So in terms of funding, if you look at our portfolio classification on the right, 32% of our portfolio is for treatments, so therapeutics. We also heavily fund supportive devices, sensor and monitoring technologies, digital and mobile health applications, research tools, in vitro diagnostics, and imaging devices. And in terms of our focus, we're very focused on Alzheimer's disease and AD-related dementias and age-related change in brain condition. aging in place, age-related diseases, as well as research tools. And one important thing to note is that because we fund innovations for a wide range of topics that affect the elderly, we are disease agnostic. So this is the NIH Funding Opportunities. On the left, you'll find the Omnibus FOAs. This is for all ICs within the NIH. Please note that the budget limit for NIA in particular, if your topic falls under the waiver topic, then you would get up to $300,000 for phase 1 and $2 million for phase 2. For AD/ADRD topics, the limit is $500,000 for phase 1 and $2.5 million for phase 2. We also participate in commercial readiness pilot, which is part of your phase 2 or after. And so these are the FOAs. And I touched upon this already. So Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation provides funding opportunity for NIA grantees. This bridge support is quite useful if you are in between phase 1 and phase 2. And if you'd like to learn more, please contact Dr. Zane Martin. I put her email address on the presentation. And we have a wealth of resources to help you. And I'm going to go over some of them for the next couple of minutes. So I believe both the Stephanies talked about this, the NIH Applicant Assistance Program. So NIA also participates in the Applicant Assistance Program. And the idea is that, for folks that have not applied to the NIH before, we provide guidance with the application process. But this is not a grant writer hired. This is support to prepare a phase 1 application. This is the eligibility criteria, and there's the application form. We also participate in the Technical and Business Assistance, so TABA, Phase 1 Needs Assessment Report, which provides a third-party unbiased assessment of progress in technical and business areas that are critical for market success. And this is for Phase 1 awardees. If you're a Phase 2 awardee, you can apply for $50,000 for doing technical and business assistance related projects. And here are some of the examples of things that you can do: technology expertise, product sales expertise, IP protections, market research, development of regulatory products, development of manufacturing plants, technical and business literature. We are also participating in the C3I Program, Commercializing Innovation Program. This is open to all SBIR and STTR awardees. And the idea is to provide entrepreneurial training course to support medical device innovators that are looking to commercialize their products. NIA also participates in the ICorps Program. This is a great resource for our Phase 1 awardees. And the program provides training from biotech sector experts, and you get years of entrepreneurial skills in only a couple of weeks. NIA is also participating in the Diversity Supplement Program. The goal here is to improve the diversity of research workforce, so our awardees can request additional funding for hiring a candidate with a diverse background. And I'm very excited about this. So NIA has realized the need to develop dedicated programs to spur innovation and to train the next generation of scientist entrepreneurs. So we are developing dedicated programs called READY, Research and Entrepreneurial Development Immersion. And the goal here is to leverage multiple funding opportunities to include entrepreneurial training and innovation in NIA mission areas. And you will receive more information on this soon. We also organize entrepreneur workshop series with the NHLBI. So Stephanie touched upon this a little bit. So the idea here is to support startups by providing them with topical presentations by EIR from NIA as well as NHLBI. NIA funded companies are also supported by us to participate in various investor events throughout the country. We try to identify a good match for our interested companies, and for 2020 and 2021, this has been mostly virtual, but the goal is we can do in-person meetings again. And a key component of our investor-related initiatives is our EIR, Dr. Don Rose, who's a dedicated entrepreneur in residence at the NIA. He's an entrepreneur, he's an investor, and he's an educator. He has extensive experience with startups, and he works part-time as a special advisor at Hatteras Ventures. And Don coaches our NIA portfolio companies and is also available for one-on-one consults. So he's a great resource. So NIA maintains a virtual showcase for select NIA funded companies. If you're interested to know more about some of the companies we're funding, you can find out on our website. So we've divided that into 4 categories: devices, diagnostics, therapeutics, and digital health and sensing technologies. So here are some of the resources for application. There are some small business resources, sample applications. You can also look at NIH Reporter and Matchmaker, and there are some NIA supported animal model resources. If you're interested in Alzheimer's disease preclinical efficacy database, if you're interested in aged rodent colonies and things like that. And this is how you can connect with us. We're on Twitter and LinkedIn. Please follow us on those platforms and also join our mailing list. If you have any questions, please email us at niasmallbusiness@mail.nih.gov. And I really think the key takeaways from today's talks are 2 things. First is that SBIR, STTR are a great way to do feasibility studies, so do apply. You not only get money for these studies, but you also get support from entrepreneurs in residence and a lot more. And write a one-pager and talk to us. We can tell you about the fit, which funding opportunity to pursue, and we can help you answer any questions you may have. Because the application process is similar to academic grants, we know that it's difficult to navigate for those that are not familiar, but we're here to provide you with any guidance. With that, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Saroj. I think that is a great takeaway. Clearly, all of you are a wealth of information, but you also are very approachable. And we always encourage companies to speak with program officers before you go through the angst of applying and make sure that there's a direct fit. So again, a reminder that we'll be doing Q&A for NIH speakers after all the NIH speakers have finished. And right now I'd like to welcome Elena from NIDA to talk about her institute's opportunities for non-dilutive funding. And take it away, Elena. Thank you.
So, welcome, everyone. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce you to the small business programs at the National Institute on Drug Abuse. So, as you know, drug addiction is a huge problem for our country. And 1 in 7 adults is expected to develop substance use disorder at some point in their lives. Every second person in this Zoom knows somebody who has suffered or is currently suffering from the substance use disorder. But demonstrating that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, 23 million people are currently in recovery, showing that treating drug addiction is possible when correct treatments are developed for and delivered to the patient population. But I think the most remarkable is the fact that only 10% of patients receive any type of specialty treatment. And for all of you, that should indicate a remarkable market opportunity, which is unfortunately not very well recognized. NIDA is a medium-sized institute with the annual budget of over $1 billion, and we contribute about $50 million to our small business program each year. Because of the peculiarities of our mission space, there is that perception of very limited market opportunities in substance use disorders and limited commercial interest from big pharma and device manufacturers. So that observation translates into perceived lack of market opportunities for small businesses. And that for the longest time was reflected in a quality and quantity of applications that NIDA would receive. So, and to solve this problem, we basically had no other choice but to restructure the program by specifically addressing 2 different areas. We are to build our own innovator community, and we are to build new markets. Right now, NIDA funds research tools and platform technologies, and we do it for both normal and diseased CNS. We fund med development, clinical research, prevention and services research, and we do fund tools for improving translational research in general. So our money obviously is as green as the money you can get from any other government agencies. But the uniqueness of NIDA product development ecosystem determines the unique type of help you can get from us if you apply to NIDA. Because our market and the lack of venture capital involvement, NIDA conducts all functions of a typical VC firm. And that includes sourcing, evaluating, transacting, managing, and exiting. So if you come to us, we will help you to manage your project and to exit it. You will have direct access to 11 SBIR program officers, all professional biomedical product developers with experience in drugs, biologics, medical devices, and digital health. NIDA employs 3 former FDA reviewers and professional business development experts. But most importantly, we will be by your side to assure your market success by helping you avoid the small business #1 mistake, building something that nobody wants. Not to put you out of business and to assure that the commercial success of your company, NIDA is extremely diligent in identifying the customer needs. And we do that by attending our drug rehab facilities in person, by actively soliciting the feedback from our patients and their families, asking them, what can science do for you? By working with patient advocacy group, and by bringing our patient populations to the FDA so they can express their needs and desires for the medications that are traditionally being developed with very limited feedback from people who are expected to take those medications. We then convert the description of those needs into active solicitations. And often those solicitations do strike a chord in the community. And we find ourselves in a situation when our RFA, our solicitation, would become the subject of the evening news. As you can see on the screen, NIDA was the first to solicit the product development efforts in objective pain measurements, social determinants of health, reproducibility, research assessment, and use of virtual reality as digital medicine. We then source the potential applicants through active scouting. NIDA has collaborations with multiple incubators and accelerators across the country. And I encourage you to pay attention to NIDA's RFAs because very often they are not restricted to addiction research, but would allow you to extend your lead application into a new area. We scout at every relevant codathon and attend all imaginable academic pitch competitions. So our most interesting companies came from FDA codathon in which we were trying to develop apps for naloxone. And many promising approaches for our social determinants of health, RFA, actually came from the pitch competition at the George Washington University in Washington, DC. So one of our success stories was a result of such direct scouting event at the pitch competition conducted by the DC-based incubator 1776. On stage was a passionate emergency room physician who lamented that it takes her more time to find an available bed to discharge the patient from the ER than she spends providing help to that patient. And her solution was to create an Airbnb-like platform for open hospital beds. But based on our need assessment, we knew that situation with drug rehab centers was even more dire. So after the pitch, we approached her with the proposal to use us as the beachhead market. The company applied for NIDA SBIR to redesign the platform to accommodate the needs for drug addiction market. During the SBIR phase 1, the platform was already purchased and deployed in the state of Indiana. And by the end of phase 2 was deployed in 6 states. As of December 2019, the OpenBeds was acquired by Appriss Health, the giant provider of electronic health records, enabling the deployment of OpenBeds platform in more than 40 states. We understand that working in NIDA area is very difficult. And that is why we support many unique programs that would allow you to get access to, for example, all kinds of illegal drugs for research purposes, to get access to the repository of biological materials that were obtained from the substance use disorder patients, established R&D screens in case you would elect to develop drugs for our indications, and regulatory help. Addressing the needs of neglected markets is very challenging, but if you are successful, it comes with the perks of being first. NIDA has a distinction of supporting the very first digital medicine cleared by the FDA, Impaired Therapeutics Reset and Reset-O, and multiple first-in-class medications. If you join a NIDA SBIR program, you will become a part of vibrant community, which was made possible by NIDA's funding and technical assistance. During the previous 3 years, NIDA helped to assure multiple M&A events. We received 5 FDA breakthrough device designations, received an agenda selection for World Economic Forum, created 16 new startups, trained more than 1,000 academic scientists, published 3 groundbreaking RFAs, which led to development of completely new areas, for example, wastewater, and using VR as a therapeutics. So NIDA company is going to be the first company to receive FDA clearance for using virtual reality as digital medicine. And finally, last week, Fast Company published the coveted list of Fast Company 2021 most innovative list of most innovative companies. And on that list of most innovative world's companies, next to Moderna and SpaceX, there were 2 companies that NIDA supports as a sole NIH funder. If you are not sure if entrepreneurship in the drug addiction space is for you, we invite you to attend our Entrepreneurship School that NIDA runs at Yale University. It is the only course of this kind at NIH, and it delivers a targeted curriculum addressing the most relevant aspects of our neglected market. Many graduates of this course go on to apply and compete in NIDA's annual startup competition. 10 or 12 winners each year receive the seed funding, but most importantly, the dedicated 6-month-long coaching assistance from NIDA staff. And through this challenge, we help to create brand new enterprises, but also allow established companies to extend their lead applications into the substance use disorder market spaces. And I also hope that those 2 examples demonstrate the incredible commitment of my institute to entrepreneurship and small businesses, because we often use non-SBIR funds to propel and support our community. So our contact information could be found on our website, and the new date for our flagship RFA that is specifically focused on opioid crisis is coming up in April. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena. Again, another great example of a wealth of information at our institutes. And one common theme is that you all are not only funding innovation, you're providing a ton of extra resources to help those innovation investments become successful. So next, from the National Cancer Institute, we have Rima Railcar. Rima?
I think I'll wait for Elena to stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
All right. Let me start sharing the screen. Can you see this well, and can you hear me well?
Yes, you're good to go. Thank you.
So thank you, Judy, and thank you, BHI, for organizing this workshop. Today, I'm going to talk about funding and commercialization resources for cancer technologies available at NCI, which is one of the institutes of NIH. So at NCI, SBIR, we fund any cancer technology that fits the mission of NCI. We have an annual budget of about $180 million, and out of which most of it goes into funding the investor-initiated SBIR, STTR grants under the omnibus solicitation. And about 10 to 20% of our budget goes into funding the R&D contracts. I'll talk about these a little bit later. So NCI has a separate office for maintaining the SBIR STTR core activities. This office, called NCI SBIR Development Center, comes under the purview of NCI Office of the Director. And our office manages, does the central oversight for all our 400 plus SBIR STTR awards, as well as we are involved in creating resources for the entrepreneurial training and commercialization efforts for our portfolio companies. Apart from that, we also guide the new applicants for their submissions. We maintain the network of investors and strategics, and we are involved in outreach events like this. And finally, we are also involved in creating new funding opportunities. Two of them I'm going to talk about in the later part of my talk. So these are the program directors at NCI SBIR office. As you can see, they have expertise in various cancer technologies, right from therapeutics, diagnostics, e-health, and even regulatory. If you have any questions about the program, or if you want us to look at your specific aims page, I would suggest to email us at the email, our office email given here. These are all the active funding opportunities available at NCI SBIR, and I'm going to briefly talk about 4 of them today. So as I said before, most of the fund goes to the investor-initiated omnibus solicitation grants. We also have some targeted solicitation for the grants. However, NCI is a prolific user for R&D contracts as a mechanism to fund the scientific and technology priority areas. Mind you, these are R&D contracts and not the service contracts. So every year, NCI solicits about 10 to 20 new topics which have a strong potential for commercial success, as well as they are in the NCI's scientific and technology priority areas. So the next date for publication is around July or August of 2021 for the receipt date of October 2021. So please keep an eye out for this upcoming funding opportunity. Next, I'm going to talk about a very unique funding opportunity called Small Business Transition Grant. This is an entrepreneurial training grant that is modeled after K99R00 mechanism. The goal of this grant is to support early career scientists in academia, such as the postdocs, to transition into the small business. And that feeds into the second goal of this grant, which is to transfer the cancer technologies from academic laboratories into the small businesses. So this grant has a very unique fast track mechanism where the phase 1 STTR transfers into phase 2 SBIR. Just like any other SBIR STTR grant, this grant is given to a small business. However, because the phase 1 STTR, phase 1 is an STTR mechanism, which means that the PI's primary employment site is not stipulated. That means the PI can continue their employment at the partnering university to finish the proof of concept studies for the phase 1. In the phase 2, however, they when the grant transitions to SBIR, they have to transition into the small business concern. So for small business transition grant, an ideal PI is an early career scientist, such as a postdoc who are currently in a mentored position. They have worked on this cancer technology during the discovery phase during their academic tenure, and they are ready to move to a small business. The key component and the unique feature of this grant is mentoring. So each PI is supposed to, each PI should identify 2 mentors, a technical mentor to help them in the scientific matters, and a technical mentor could be a lab head from where the technology is originating, and a business mentor ideally who has an experience in commercialization of the cancer technologies to help them with the commercialization process. The PI and the 2 mentors are required to finish ICorps at NIH training. So the transition from phase 1 to phase 2 has some really critical criteria, and I would suggest to read the FOAs carefully to understand this criteria. In the phase 2, the PI moves to a small business concern, and most of the research is conducted at the SBC site. The 2 institutes that are offering this grant are NCI and NHGRI, and the contact information for these 2 institutes is given here, as well as the link to the FOA is given here. And as I said before, please read the FOAs carefully. Next, I'm going to talk about another unique unique funding opportunity that we recently launched, and it is called Small Business Concept Award. So one of the important criteria for SBIR, STTR grants is innovation. However, as well as commercialization, 2 things are innovation and commercialization potential. And what we have seen is that in most of the phase 1 grants that received a really good score, most of them have really good preliminary data. So as a result, truly innovative concepts are sometimes lost, or they do not score well. So we launched this particular funding opportunity to foster really early stage innovative technologies. Unlike the previous opportunity, the small business transition grant, unlike that, that was a grant. This one is a contract. This is an R&D contract. So what is Concept Award? So the Concept Award is a contract, R&D contract, for developing highly innovative and transformative technologies that have potential to create new scientific paradigms or establish entirely new approaches to significantly improve cancer technologies for rare or pediatric cancers. The funding is $300,000 for 1 year. As I have been saying before, this is a contract mechanism. As a result, the point of contact is Sherry Wells from NCI Office of Acquisitions. So being a contract means the offerers, the applicants for the contract are called offerers. The offerers cannot contact the program. So in order to have a programmatic feedback, the offerers can actually submit a 2 to 3 page white paper by March 26th. The program would be able to give feedback whether the technology is fit for the funding opportunity or not. Another important characteristic is that the preliminary data is neither required nor expected. This is because we have created special review criteria for this solicitation that is weighted more towards innovation rather than other things such as who is pitching the idea or what the pedigree of the researcher is. This is a short application of only 15 pages versus the 50 pages for the normal R&D contract. And we plan to make the awards rapidly within the 6 months. So which is rapidly for NIH basically. Again, read the program. I have given the links here and read the program solicitation very carefully. So this was a very, very early stage funding. And the next opportunity I'm going to talk about is exactly opposite of that, which is a very late stage funding called Phase 2B Bridge Award. And both the Stephanies and Saroj touched over this, this funding opportunity in their talks. So we here understand that the biomedical technology development is time consuming as well as a very expensive endeavor. So we have, NCI or SBIR started offering this award to address the funding gap known as the valley of death between the end of phase 2 and the starting of subsequent rounds of non-federal fundings. The budget here for NCI is up to $4 million for the period of 2 to 3 years. This award is open to any phase 2 awardees from any federal agency who have projects relevant to NCI mission. However, the applicants here are expected to show an ability to raise matching non-federal funds. Now I want to shift gears from the unique funding opportunities to the unique resources that are available at NCI SBIR, or we participate at NCI SBIR. So some of the resources are, for example, CARE regulatory resource where we connect awardees with the experts at the FDA. We are planning to start a mentoring program. We have executive roundtable for peer, which is a peer mentoring platform for C-level officers. So in next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk about three important resources that we have at NCI. The first one is ICorps at NIH. This is a immersive entrepreneurial training program available for phase 1 awardees, active phase 1 awardees funded by NIH or CDC. The mission of this program is to empower entrepreneurs in developing and validating a strategic business model through diverse customer discovery in order to meet the unmet clinical needs. The teams are required to conduct 100 interviews over the period of 8 weeks. This helps them to better understand their core customers and the specific steps required for downstream commercialization. And more information is in the link below. The next one is the virtual TREX workshop that is going on right now. It is spread over the entire month of March. So these workshops provide an opportunity to learn to utilize various federal and non-federal resources to advance the commercialization process. The attendees get an opportunity to meet one-on-one with the speakers, with the panelists, and also with NCI SBIR program directors. There is an opportunity to network with like-minded companies as well as the cancer experts from NCI. And finally, I want to talk about Investor Initiative Program. So we maintain active connection with a lot of VCs, investors, and strategists. And we want to connect them to the NCI, SBIR, STTR funded companies so as to help them with the research and commercialization efforts. The application for this annual program generally starts in late January, and there are a lot of reasons to apply for this program. The applications are reviewed by a group of VCs and strategics, and they provide detailed review for the application so that the companies understand how the VCs look at their, how the companies look and review their how the VCs look and review their companies, as well as there is pitch coaching. There is a possibility of attending and pitching in the showcases such as Bio or RAISY and Life Science Summit. And there is also a possibility of financial assistance for presenting at these investor forums. So in short, at NCI SBIR, we have a lot of funding and non-funding resources. And one of the best ways to stay on top of them is to sign up for the for our mailing list on our website, sbir.cancer.gov. Again, the email for our office is given here. So if you're planning to apply for the April deadline, definitely contact the program, send us your specific aims page, stay connected to us on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I will stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rima. Great presentation, as all of these are. We're gonna, again, a reminder, we'll do questions in just a minute after we hear from NIAID, a very busy place these days, as every institute is, but especially with COVID, at Natalia's institute, and she's going to share funding opportunities there.
Thank you. Just 1 second, I will share the slides. Okay.
And while you're setting up, I know a number of people on the webinar are signed up for partnering, as well as an additional almost 100 folks. If you're having challenges with the partnering, please email bhi@biohealthinnovation.org. We'll try to help you. The main thing is to make sure that you've shown that you're available so that your availability can be matched and scheduled. Okay, Natalia, I don't want to take away from your time.
Sure, thank you. I hope you all can see my slide, at least the first one, yes?
We're seeing the first and second.
Okay. Okay, anyway, thank you everyone. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk in front of you, and I wish we can meet in person, and I hope someday when life will go back to normal and we can have this conversation like in real life. Anyway, very quickly about myself. My name is Natalia Kruchenin. I am a small business program coordinator for National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. And I don't think I need to introduce this institute. You all know Dr. Fauci, who is director of our institute. I've been with small business program from 2008. I joined actually government, I joined NCI SBIR Development Center at the beginning when the plan was to build this center. And therefore I really love this program. I'm with this program for quite a bit. And I also would like to apologize. I'm sure you have so many presentations from NIH folks today. Some of the slides maybe you saw already, but I just want to mention again, from 24 institutes at NIH, 24 are participating in small business program. We, NIAID, the second largest institute within NIH, and our budget, we're talking about fiscal year 20, 175 million. NIH budget got increased by 3%. NIAID total budget about 6 billion now, and obviously small business program, because it's set aside amount of money, congressionally mandated, the amount will go up. I didn't calculate yet, and I didn't get the numbers from budget yet. But anyway, all this dollar amount, I'm talking about NIAID, will go to support grants, contracts, and cooperative agreements. And this some percentage will go to support the program. Anyway, okay. Also, I'm sure you saw this slide. I always recommend to our applicants to use these slides, Google NIH SBIR, especially when you're new to the program. Go to the yellow button, new to SBIR, and it will explain what needs to be done. Because sometimes, you know, this process can be overwhelming. It will explain how to register, how to apply, what solicitation to use. Also check on this side, actually frequently asked questions. A lot of information, some answers you can get from this site. Again, I'm not talking today about the program structure. I'm sure you learn already by this, but this time, because so many talks NIH folks presented. But I would like to mention that we, NIAID, are participating in, of course, direct to phase 2, because it's one of the options, one of the grant mechanism allowed within the omnibus solicitation. It used to be a separate program announcement. Now you can apply through omnibus. Fast track application, very attractive. A lot of companies considering fast track. Keep in mind, if you're considering fast track, you need to have a really strong commercialization plan. And also keep in mind that sometimes reviews, it will take a little bit more scrutiny, because reviewers don't know, they need to make a decision about the whole package, phase 1, phase 2 together, because you will submit as one package, it will go through the review, you will get one score, but review is sometimes not sure if the phase 1 will be successful, and therefore again, have a strong commercialization plan. But the benefit of this mechanism, you can get funding for phase 2 significantly faster. You can, it depends on the institute. In our institute, you can get in a couple of weeks. If your progress report approved by program for phase 1, you can get funding for phase 2 maybe a couple of weeks later, which is nice. I also would like to mention that we, NIH, are participating in phase 2B. This is for phase 2 applicants who need additional time and additional funding to continue their research. Keep in mind, we, again, NIH, we're not asking for matching funding, because some ICs have similar programs like Bridge, what you just heard from NCI. We are not asking for matching funds. Again, if you need additional funding, additional time to continue research after phase 2, you can consider phase 2B. Success rate is very nice, about actually 45%. And we also are participating in commercialization readiness program. And I have a couple of slides I want to talk about this. Commercialization readiness program, pilot program, CRP. As I'm sure you heard today, at NIH, we have 3 program announcements. 2 kind of larger program announcements, 1 clinical trials allowed, and another program announcement, clinical trials are not allowed. We, NIH, are participating only in the first one, clinical trials not allowed. Just keep this in mind. But this is a very interesting program. It's again, it's transition of previously or currently funded phase 2 and phase 2Bs projects to move to the next step towards commercialization. But it's different from phase 2, phase 2B, what I just mentioned, because some of the activities of this program, it's different from phase 2B. And what I love about this program, as you know, for phase 2 and phase 2B, you can subcontract only 50%. For this program, there is no even number. You can subcontract actually maybe 80%, maybe higher, but just of course be careful, because small business still need to do the job. A good program announcement, keep in mind another option to move towards commercialization. Now, as you know, omnibus solicitations 3 times a year, about 80% of applicants applying to omnibus. Always check targeted solicitation, because less applicants applying, success rate can be higher. But also remember about SBIR contracts. To my surprise, actually, not so many applicants actually even know or consider. And just very simple to explain what's the difference between grant solicitation versus contracts. With grants, you basically will write your specific aims, your idea, your specific aims. With contracts, it's basically institutes will tell you what we would like you to be done. It's very specific what needs to be done. But if you feel that you really, can do it, please consider apply. And I have somewhere a slide I will show you actually a little bit later about contracts. This is about omnibus solicitation, just to point that from 4 program parent omnibus solicitation, NIH participating only clinical trials not allowed. SBIR omnibus, STTR omnibus, again, only in clinical trials not allowed. But if your project related to clinical trials, please consider so-called clinical trials implementation cooperative agreement, U44, clinical trials required. It's targeted solicitation for NIH. It's cooperative agreement. Again, if your project related to clinical trials, look at this program announcement. You can see the number 21082. U44 program supports implementation of clinical trials for small business concerns within the mission of our institute. These 4 will accept phase 2, phase 2B, fast track, and direct to phase 2 applications. If you're considering to apply just to phase 2, you will need to have a previous phase 1 related to this project, but you can go with fast track or direct to phase 2. It's actually this 4 was just recently reissued, and I include direct to phase 2 mechanism allowed, and therefore you can actually apply. Keep in mind, this U44 is only for SBIR program. And you can check also additional frequently asked questions if you have additional questions about this program announcement. Some of the activities, this program encourages high-risk clinical trials. Just take a look, be careful, not be careful, if you're considering this program announcement, feel free to reach out to me. There is email, I believe I put email. Email will be later. You can reach out to me because we usually like for applicants who are considering U44 to discuss first with the division, and I will connect you with the right person to have additional conversation before you will apply. And of course, you can only use one clinical trial within one application. Now, I mentioned SBIR contracts. As you know, the contract solicitation is closed now. Every year, NIH will publish SBIR contract solicitation. It's going to be open for fiscal year 2022. It's going to be open sometimes end of July till October, end of October. About NIAID, we will have 16 SBIR contract topics. Again, 16. Please check. I actually put a slide just to give you an idea why it's attractive to apply to SBIR contracts. Like in 2020, we got 79 proposals and 35 being awarded. It means success rate is almost 40% because, again, less applicants applying because it's very specific what we're looking for, institute is looking. But if you can, please consider to apply. Now let's talk about NIAID. Again, with the second largest institute, as I mentioned, we have dual mandate. Basically, NIAID conduct and support basic and applied research to better understand, treat, and ultimately prevent infection, immunologic, and allergic diseases. But another second very unique mandate, in case of emerging public health threats, like as you can see, COVID or Ebola or Zika, this is our second unique mandate. Within NIAID, we have several divisions. 4 of them extramural divisions: Division of AIDS, Division of Allergy, Immunology and Transplantation, Division of Microbiology, Infection Diseases, and Division of Extramural Activities. Budget of these 3 first divisions I mentioned, almost all budget will go to support grants, contracts, and cooperative agreements. And therefore, if you consider to apply to NIAID, very important to look at our areas of high priority. On the next slide, I will show you the link. And we have a division of clinical research, division of intramural research, and vaccine center. And the 4th division of extramural activities is actually a division where will be grant management, policy, small business program is under this division. These 3 divisions specify every year they will update areas of interest, and you can see the link for which NIAID will accept investigator-initiated SBIR STTR proposal. NIAID leadership will identify major research initiatives, and sometimes these initiatives will receive funding priority, like it was in case of COVID, or it is in case of COVID, or other special resources. Program descriptions updated annually, as I mentioned, and published in the topic document available through Omnibus or through most of all SBIR STTR forms. And the waiver topic, Appendix A, indicate high priority topics. I will talk about waivers when I will have a slide about the budget, just we will talk a little bit more about this. Now, let's couple of slides related to COVID. Unfortunately, after September 5th, 2020 receipt date, most NIH institutes made a decision to expire their COVID-related notice of special interest. And right now, within NIAT, we basically all COVID-related applications we will forward to apply through, not forward, we will advise to apply through Omnibus. I will still advise you to check this site, COVID-19 Funding Opportunities, because some of the program announcements, even it's not SBIR, but small businesses are eligible to apply. And I put one example. Just again, it's changing regularly. Just keep in mind and check the site. I also want to share with you this slide. It's about resources available within NIAT, and NIAT have many resources. You can find information about our resources at the link below, and also take a look at BI resource repository. Repository is a center repository that supplies organism and reagent to a broad community of microbiology and infection disease research. Also, I put a link. Please take a look, and it's free. No cost. Now let's talk about budget. Oh gosh, many applicants are asking questions about this. It can be confusing. As you all know, SBA every year will increase so-called caps for SBIR STTR for inflation. They recently actually, and I'm sure again you heard today, they increased for phase 1 259,000 and phase 2 1.7 million. But you also need to keep in mind, and I'm talking about NIAT, NIH received approval from Small Business Administration for waiver, so-called waiver topics. These waiver topics budget allowed to exceed numbers posted by SBA. And for NIAT, because each institute have different budget numbers, for NIAT, if your research falls under waiver topics, NIAT will allow for phase 1 application up to 300,000 per year, up to 2 years. Basically for phase 1, you can get up to 600,000. Phase 2 and phase 2B, CRP, up to 1 million per year, up to 3 years. Again, it's a nice amount of money, but no prior approval required. Grant management is going to check the compliance with specific topics during the award, and they will communicate with program to get approval for higher budget. What you need to be careful when you request budget above SBA caps, always keep in mind that the budget request need to match science. What you need to do, again, not to do, during the review, reviewers are going to evaluate your application based on scientific merit, but they will put one sentence related to budget. Keep the budget as requested or reduce it. Try to avoid this sentence to reduce it, because most of our grantees actually applying within the waiver topics. Our waiver topics are very broad. And again, most of the grantees, it's not unique situation when you're asking for higher budget. But again, be sure your science match the budget request. Okay, also keep in mind, you heard about TABA today, that you can actually request 6,500 for phase 1 per year and 50,000 for the whole project for phase 2. In case of NIAT, it will go above the award. Again, above the award. This is nice to remember. And I put some information where you can put request about the TABA in F line, and then put detailed descriptions. You can see on my slide. Sorry, I'm not watching the time and I'm stuck talking too fast maybe. Anyway, I have few slides just to give you an idea, and I hope it will help you when you will apply. First of all, talk to us. Talk to us. I put my name here and also link to NIH SBIR program coordinators within other institutes. I was surprised to learn that sometimes applicants not sure that they can actually talk to us before they will apply. We always advise, talk to before, not 2 days before you're ready to apply, at least a couple of months. Send a short abstract, and I will set up a time, and with my team, we will have a discussion. Okay, and of course, apply early. Never apply at the last moment, at least 2 days before due date. Okay. Now, we at NIAT posted samples of successful application. I'm actually very proud of this project. For a long time, we've been the first institute who did it. I'm not even sure. I think Asian Institute posts some samples. I'm not sure, maybe NCI. But we have samples of successful application. I believe it's very helpful tool, phase 1, phase 2, fast track. Please check it out, yes. Also, we have application assistant program. It's a little bit, not a little bit, it's a lot different from some ICs are participating, some ICs are also have application assistant program. In our case, we have our own for NIAID. And in our case, this program is for awarded phase 1s who planning to move forward to apply to phase 2. But the fast track applicants allowed and direct to phase 2. It means basically if you even don't have previous award, if you're planning to submit to direct to phase or fast track, you can consider our application assistant program. It's the last cycle for this year. Keep in mind, it's so popular because it's only 25 slots and it's free. Basically, the slots I fill out in half a day. I don't have a date when it's going to be open, sometimes at end of May. Just watch for our emails or send me email and we will keep you updated. Very popular, going fast, but very helpful. We contracted a company, Foresight, who is managing and doing all training for applicants. Now, key documents, just keep in mind, obviously, omnibus solicitation you need to read, SF424 guide, and some additional links just to help you when you're preparing for your application to submit. Also, Reporter, I'm sure you heard about this. Use Report, it's a nice tool because a lot of emails coming to me with a question, is this project for NIAID or for somewhere else? You can look at Reporter, put in this search box a few keywords, click, and you will see similar funded projects within NIH. And you will see institutes they apply. You also can check actually program officials who are assigned to these projects. You can use Matchmaker, very helpful site, okay? Now, the same idea, Federal Reporter. You can do the search in NIH, the previous report in NIH, just NIH awarded projects. Federal Reporter for, I believe, maybe 17 federal agencies, the same idea, do the search, see similar projects. Maybe you're actually missing your competition who is doing similar work. Really advise you to check. Also, let's talk very briefly about assignment request form. It's an optional form included in your application where you can actually ask for assignment for the institute. For example, you want to apply to us, you can put NIAID name, but keep in mind, you actually can put up to 3 institutes because it's so-called dual assignment. The reason why it's actually can be helpful. For example, you got a good score, but it's above pay line. NIAID is publishing pay line, yes? Some institutes are not. And you have a good score, but it's above. Program officials like me can communicate with another institute and ask if they have additional money. If you have this option there, it will help. If you don't have it, not going to help, keep in mind. You also can request study session assignment in the same forum. You can identify conflicts, you can suggest expertise. You cannot recommend reviews, but you can suggest expertise. This tool is very helpful. If you're not sure which study session to use, always program officer is helpful. You can talk to program officer if you know and ask for recommendation. But in this tool, it's not just for SBIR. You can select the grant mechanism. You can put short paragraph in search box, click, and it will recommend you maybe 3 or 4 study sessions you can use for your research. And I'm almost done. This is the last slide. This is my team, because sometimes when applicants reaching out, you will see the names. I want to very quickly, if I have time, to mention very quickly why it's important to actually target the institutes where you want to apply. Center of Scientific Review referral office will assign your application even if you didn't indicate which institute you would like to apply. But always advise, target the institute, know the areas of high priority. The reason why, like in our case, our pay line is published. If you're within the pay line, you will get money, no questions asked. But if it's above pay line, but decent score, at the end of the year, when we have money left, we will create so-called end of year list. And therefore, it's important to know what division is looking for, and you have another chance to be funded. Thank you so much, and I'm done.
Thank you, Natalia. I didn't want to cut you off because a lot of the information at the end applies across all of the institutes. But first of all, thank you to all the program officers for sharing such a wealth of information and doing it pretty much on time. We do have questions that some of you may have seen in the Q&A, and Stephanie F, if you're still there, I think where it's not obvious by institute, hello. I promise not to talk over. So I think I'll let you maybe help assign these. In the questions, and I'm going to include questions in the chat as well as questions that we got during registration. There's a repeated question, even after all of your presentations, about what are the criteria, and at a very high level, where and how you go. What I heard is it has to be innovative, have commercial success potential, talk to program officers, look on our website. What would you say, adding or disagreeing to that?
Absolutely. I think there are, I think it's important to note that there are 5 review criteria. These are, and for those who are familiar with the NIH system, these should not be a surprise. And that's significance, innovation, approach, environment, and investigators. So significance, how significant is the project going to be? And usually that is involved in the scope of the problem and how this is going to really solve the needs of, again, those patients, clinicians, caregivers, and researchers. Innovation, how innovative is this product? We do recognize that, so I always make the joke that the FDA is not interested in innovative tox studies, but so innovation here isn't necessarily about the approach, it's about making sure that your product is innovative. How different is that compared to other things on the market or other solutions for the problem that you're trying to solve? We have approach. Is this the correct approach? Is this what's necessary to move this product further down the product development pathway? Innovators, is this the right team? Okay, so if you want to think of, the actual investigators is all about the team. And then finally, environment. Does the company have the resources, have the capability to do the work that's being proposed? So those are the 5 criteria. Again, it's the same as your standard R01, but there's an SBIR, STTR flavor to them.
Thank you. We had a couple questions about the AAP program. One is it competitive? 2, are there thoughts about expanding it?
So I did see a note, and I did see that was answered by typing, but I would say that it is a competitive program, so not everyone that applies, unfortunately, can be accepted in. And at this point, we can't talk about a future programs until they've been released or are publicly announced. But I can say that there are a number of institutes and centers that do participate, and you heard a number of them on today. So I would encourage you, if you're in one of those areas, to take a look at the program.
Thank you. And we have some international companies. I think I know the answer to this, but what is the basic requirements in terms of companies based overseas are they able to apply for this type of funding?
So I would read the eligibility. We do get a number of questions about eligibility, so I'm going to broaden that question just a touch and talk about, there are some specific eligibility requirements for the small business program. You do have to be a U.S. company that is owned by U.S. citizens, majority owned by U.S. citizens or permanent resident aliens. I would encourage you to go to the website, SBIR.nih.gov. We have all the eligibility there, and actually there is also a link out to the Small Business Administration. Has a really complete document that kind of walks through different examples of eligibility. And then if you still have eligibility questions, we can address those as well. But it is for U.S. companies.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple more general questions and then I'll get to some specific.
Judy, sorry to interrupt. If it's okay, can I, Judy and Stephanie, can I mention about application assistant program? Because NIH, we have separate program, just want to mention. And because I was in a hurry to finish on time. Anyway, I just want to say that we are going to have 2 additional webinars related to NIH application assistant program before submission date. And I really encourage you to join, because it can be, I don't have time to explain more, but our program on first come, first basis, basically 25 slots. If you submit very early, you will fill, but again, very competitive, filling slots very quickly. Thank you, sorry about this.
No problem. There are a couple questions about how is confidentiality of IP and how important is IP for these applications?
Ooh, that's a great question. So many of our applicants do have some level of, have either filed a provisional patent or filed a patent, so they've done some work on protecting their intellectual property. We don't require that you do that, and there is our reviewers, and it is a peer review process, but the application is not considered a public disclosure. So again, I would encourage you to reach out and talk with an intellectual property attorney. We are not intellectual property attorneys here, but there is, the review process is confidential. That is kind of one of the hallmarks of the NIH review process. However, I would encourage you to look and protect your intellectual property, as appropriate, and reach out and talk with an intellectual property attorney if you have any questions.
Thank you. We have a couple questions related to dual applications. Should you apply for a phase 2 and a fast track at the same time? And what about applying to NSF, who we'll hear from later today, and NIH at the same time?
Yeah, I did see those and I hesitated. I said, well, I should probably try to answer those live. So first, and there was another one in there about, other institutes within NIH as well. So you can, so I'm going to start with the NSF NIH question. So you can take the same project and apply to both NSF and NIH at the same time. You would designate that you're doing that on your application. So there's a checkbox that says I'm applying to I'm applying to another agency. You can't obviously accept the money. So say both NIH and NSF is interested in supporting that project. You can't get double funded. The federal government does not like paying for the same thing twice, right? So you're going to have to then choose, do I take the NSF money or do I take the NIH money? But you can submit to 2 agencies at the same time. However, when you're submitting to NIH, you're submitting to NIH. You're not submitting to an individual institute or center. You're asking an individual or institute or center, to be assigned to an individual institute or center, but you're submitting to the NIH. So what that means is, for a specific project, you can only submit that project and it will get assigned to an institute and center. So you can't submit the same project to, say, NCI and NHLBI. That's not, you would submit one project, it will get assigned to one of those institutes, and the other institute can potentially be a secondary assignment on that project. Similarly, you can't submit the same project and submit it as a phase 1 and a fast track at the same time. You have to pick whether or not you want to do a phase 1 or a fast track. However, a company can submit multiple projects. So say you have 2 different projects. Maybe you have a project that's looking at developing a tool or technology, squarely within, the sleep space. And then you have a completely different technology that's specific for cancer. And those are 2 distinctively different projects without overlap. You can submit those. They would be assigned to those 2 different institutes or centers. And then what would happen is they would get reviewed as 2 separate projects. And then, so that's kind of a little bit of a nuance there with regards to submitting multiple projects and how companies might want to think about that.
But a program officer can also help clarify that as long as you're not
Yes.
contacting them.
Yes. And that's the other thing. I mean, particularly if you're brand new and you're considering submitting multiple applications, I generally really encourage you to reach out then and talk to program officers. While you can submit multiple applications, and sometimes, companies will do that, putting together an application is not a trivial process. I think you're definitely hearing that from us today. And so I would make sure that whatever you submit, it's the best possible project that you can submit. And sometimes that means maybe focusing on one project at a time. Depends on the size of the team and the specific company.
So we have two questions related to that. One is we're struggling between the research focus of an SBIR versus getting our product and technology out the door. And the second is, if a project has several components, is it better to submit multiple applications for component design projects?
So both of those things, those are the kinds of conversations that you can have with your program officer. I do, because some of those are very project specific. And so I would encourage you to reach out to the program officer with a rough draft of what you're thinking about proposing. It doesn't have to be pretty. Sometimes people are really worried about submitting anything to the program officers prior to application, and they think it has to be perfect. And the answer is no, it doesn't. It's actually better to reach out earlier with something that might be a little rougher around the edges than waiting until the last minute with something that's a little bit more clear. That kind of dichotomy between, how much research and development versus business, that's something that we do often see in the small business program. And again, this is a conversation that you should have with your program officer.
Outsource CROs, does that help or hinder if you're not able to do the studies in-house? I saw that come in on the chat and on this other list of questions.
Right, there was a question about that whole, and what we call them the work requirements, if you're wondering. So when you're looking on our website, you might see work requirements. Or put another way, how much can I outsource? How much has to be done by the company? There are specific guidelines for the SBIR. There are specific hard rules for the STTR program around those work requirements. Many of our small businesses have to outsource some portion of the work around for their project because they just don't have that in-house ability or expertise, and that's okay. Again, and I think Stephanie Davis touched briefly on this about, what is considered, how those work requirements work. I would encourage you to look at the website and then reach out to a program officer if you have any specific questions about how much you think you can be outsourcing versus not. But it is perfectly acceptable to outsource some of that work. And I see Stephanie Davis is typing an answer to that, some of the specifics there, which is great.
Thank you. And I know we're running out of time. We're using the networking, but I think these are important. We have hundreds of questions. Reminder that we have a session within the next hour and a half on writing your specific aims and on the commercialization plan. So I'm not taking those questions right now. The top 3 predictors of non-dilutive funding success. I think you touched on them, but.
I guess the question is, and that's an interesting one. And I'm going to reframe it to say, you're basically saying, what are the things that, that we're looking for? What makes a successful application? And again, I think that can vary. We get such a variety of applications that come to us within the NIH. And that's because, as I stated before, we don't have a hard and fast definition of what specifically is a feasibility study. So we get such a variety of modalities, of disease areas, of where they are on the program pipeline. I think what we're looking for is really innovative, exciting new innovations that are really tackling and helping address the difficult problems that face our clinicians and caregivers and patients and researchers. And so that's what we're really looking for. And again, this is, I'd encourage you to reach out to the different program officials because each institute and center does have their own specific topic areas of interest. And so that's why it's important to reach out and talk with them ahead of time.
So we do have specific questions about where should we apply if we have an AI fitness app, if we have telehealth, if we have mRNA vaccines. We're not going to have time to go into each of those. I want to tell everybody on the call that if you registered and are in partnering, we have shared your contact information with each of the relevant institutes, and they've promised to try to reach you through our partnering system this week and do a follow-up afterwards where you will be able to have a one-on-one conversation, which is what I think you're recommending, as well as going through Reporter.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I would also, and I'm going to pop this into the chat for everyone in just 2 shakes, but I would also encourage you, if for whatever reason you don't, get a chance to reach out to someone specific here, or you're not sure who to reach out. And a number of us touched on how to use Reporter and other, assets to try to figure out where you might best fit. But if you're still not sure, you can email the central office directly. And I'm going to pop that email into the chat. You can use seedinfo@nih.gov to reach out to us and ask that question, provide a brief description of what you're proposing, and we can connect you to the right institute or center for your technology or your product. And that might be the best way. Again, I encourage you to look at the NIH Reporter system, do what Stephanie Davis was talking about, where you can actually try to see, hey, put in your specific information about your specific aims, and it will try to say, here are similar projects, here's where you might want to go and think about being, where you're likely to be assigned. But if you're still unsure, you can always reach out and talk with us. And that might be the best way for individuals to kind of see where they might fit.
Excellent. I'm sorry that we're out of time because there were many more questions, but I think that's a great resource. I want to thank you, Stephanie, and the other Stephanie, and Rima, Saroj, Natalia, Elena, all of you for sharing your expertise. I think most, if not all of you, have said that we can make these slides and this recording available afterwards. I'm getting questions about whether or not we'll do that. So within the next 2 weeks, after we confirm that that's permissible by all the regulatory folks, we will make that available. A special thank you, though, for taking the time to prepare your presentation, share your expertise. I encourage everybody to look at the websites on your own, but we'll give you all the specific information that we can within the next 2 weeks by email.